Morning class, it's Friday morning. I just wanted to send this as a video update and also to outline some of the things that we'll be doing over the next couple weeks, if and perhaps for the rest of the semester, depending on how this COVID-19 situation evolves. It's evolving quickly. I think these mitigation efforts that the state of Ohio has taken have been wonderful, right? Ohio, oddly enough, is leading the way in how to handle a situation like this. So, Washington, California, right? They're behind the curve. Thankfully, Ohio is ahead of it. And now New York State, Massachusetts, other states are starting to follow suit as they experience this kind of, situation. Well, Denver and Colorado, right? They had a concert and they haven't changed anything, and they're actually now becoming a outbreak kind of center in the central United States, or the West, I guess Colorado is. But never mind. So with the discussion posts from yesterday, excellent job, right? You all, if you participated in the discussion and responded to classmates, it looks like you all, kind of watched the most of the documentary. I see that some of you watched it all the way through, which is great, and that you engage with the ideas in a strong way, right? All of you pointed out different kinds of points that relate to some of the arguments that I raised in terms of my own research about the 1970s, mainly, right? When you think of the 1960s, there's this idea of collective effort to tackle big issues. With all of these different kinds of problems that occurred during the 1970s, Watergate, stagflation, the retreat from Vietnam, energy crises, everything, right, caused Americans to abandon collective purpose and turn inward, right? Historian Daniel Rogers calls this the beginning of the age of fracture. So this turn inward, right, that I argue is so important to the 1970s, manifested through the tensions between modernism, modernity, its constituent elements, and anti-modernism, right? So familiarize yourself with those themes from the PowerPoint. Familiarize yourself with the PowerPoint from Monday. Think about the documentary that you watched yesterday as a complement to that, right? Not necessarily parallel, but it complements some of the issues that you should be thinking about for this essay on the 1970s. So all of you pointed out some great points. I'm reading through them right now. Zach raised some issues about humor, right, in terms of how that's used to exaggerate, right, some of the gender norms of the time. Kerrigan got into issues of societal expectations changing. Nick brought up some excellent points too about how drug use, right, is seen or at least talked about in this documentary. You all brought up great points. Jeremy got into this issue about power as it relates to gender norms, and yeah, everyone did great on this. So read each other's posts, think about what you would take away from those posts, what you took away from the documentary, and then start to apply that to your own kind of outlining for the essay, right? So there is no right or wrong answer for the essay, but you're going to need to use primary sources, a lot of them, right, from Zaretsky, from the documentary, and from any other kind of outside research you want. Look up 70s advertisements, right? I have a couple of Nike advertisements from the 70s. Look up advertisements for television shows or beer commercials or all kinds of things from the 1970s highlighted this turn inward, right? In my own writing, I have a section in a chapter about cigarette advertisements during the 1970s, right? There's a classic Cool cigarettes brand commercial where it says, "Get away from hot taste," right, and enjoy the pure menthol flavor. And what that does is that communicates a couple of things, right? Hot taste being an analogy for the cities, right? And in the image you can see the couple enjoying these cigarettes out in nature, but then hot taste also relating to, right, the combusted tobacco smoke. So you use menthol to cool, right? But it's communicated through these ideas of nature and things like that. So look up some advertisements from the 1970s. look up different kinds of fads, geodis communities, biodomes, all of these different things emerged during the 1970s. The Back to the Land movement, you should look up as well. Maybe I'll post some resources about that, where Americans are trying to escape the cities, right? They're getting back to the land, getting back to this Jeffersonian idea that we need to cultivate the land in these kinds of communes, because it's the most democratic kind of experience, right? This kind of agrarian identity starts to become resurrected during the 1970s, where, if you remember, in terms of the demographics, as people had been since the 1860s, or even before during the market revolution of the 1820s, had been flocking to cities, right? Because this is the future, this is the modern era. We don't need to live in isolated communities anymore. Well, during the 1970s, right, this is the first time in U.S. history where the population of cities starts to decrease and the population of rural areas starts to increase. The first time at least since the 1800s. So people are rejecting the city and opting for, quote unquote, a more authentic kind of life outside of the city. Now, this relates to issues of race as well, right? The tensions of race, all of those kinds of issues. So I'm excited to see how your essays come out, and thinking about these forms of spirituality, using the documentary as just one example, right? But then finding more, as I mentioned, right? Doing some Google searches, things like that. I'm also going to post the article for the article review, and I'll communicate with you through video on Monday about that. We're going to put a pause button on the lecture that I had planned for Monday, and instead we're going to engage with At the Dark End of the Street, because you can still bring that into your essays as well, and this will be a great time for us to actually talk about the book finally, right? And you've had enough time now to finish it. If you haven't, start reading it over the weekend, and we're going to have an extended discussion on it that you'll be graded on, and you'll be graded on this discussion from yesterday as part of your attendance participation grade. So refer to the syllabus for point breakdowns. You'll still have to do your article review for next week. We'll do another primary source kind of response and all of that, and I'll continue to keep you updated through these video lectures and video updates, right, to make it seem as if we're together, even though we're all isolated and separated because of this pandemic. But we'll try to make the virtual as authentic as we can, right? So if you have any questions, just email me. Great job on the Woman House discussion. I know this came at short notice, so great job on it. Now I'm getting an echo, so I need to pause.